Hi, the SI meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Wednesday, March 6th. Well, the storm we have been tracking for the last several days is now affecting much of the Mid-Atlantic region. It's a complicated storm, still a tough forecast in many parts of the Mid-Atlantic region. There's rain, there's snow, there's wind, and it's been snowing for the last few hours from about Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, down across Washington, D.C., all the way down to Charlottesville, Virginia. In fact, some accumulations are being reported of a few inches, 4 or 5 inches in Culpeper, Virginia, for example, to the south and west of D.C., several inches up across western Maryland. Meanwhile, rain across southeastern Pennsylvania, southern New Jersey, Delmarva Peninsula. As the day progresses, enough colder air should move in to change that rain to snow, and accumulations, if they were to occur here in southeastern Pennsylvania, would be later on this afternoon into the early part of the evening hour as that storm pulls up to the north and east. Here's the latest radar loop from the Penn State EWAL site that has a color scheme associated with the precipitation types. Meanwhile, specifically the blues and whites are snow. The pinks represent a mixture of snow, sleet, and rain. And meanwhile, over here across the eastern part of the scene here, we have rain that are, the colors are green and yellows. Some thunder actually is being reported in the last hour here in Richmond, Virginia area. Basically, the circulation is around the surface low pressure area. The last few frames here, you can see kind of a circulation in southeastern Virginia. Right around Richmond is where that surface low pressure area is setting up right now. It should intensify over the next few hours, and we'll now break down all the factors involved with this complicated storm. Well, here's kind of a close-up look at the pressure pattern associated with this intensifying low pressure area. First of all, we mentioned, I believe the surface low right now is around Richmond, Virginia, and southeastern part of the state. A lot of these isobars here are coming in this direction here. Wind flows generally parallel to these isobars. So you can see there's basically a wind flow out of the east, or maybe the east-northeast here in southern New Jersey across the Delmarva Peninsula and into the eastern part of Virginia. And the ocean temperatures right now are 40, 42 degrees or so. This is helping to keep the precipitation in the form of liquid here in the eastern half of the scene. Now, back here over the Washington, D.C. area and out over the eastern part of West Virginia, western Virginia, kind of flow backs around more towards the out of the northeast, bringing in some colder air. That'll be kind of the trend here across southeastern Pennsylvania. Later in the day, the winds will shift from the east to more east-northeast and then northeast, and that'll help to bring in some colder air as the surface low intensify and slowly pulls to the north and east. Now, one of the reasons we expect that low to continue to intensify over the next few hours is way up in the upper parts of the atmosphere. This is actually an upper level jet streak at 300 millibars, represented here by these purple lines here. Basically, the very strong winds rounding out the base of that trough. Again, this is in the upper part of the atmosphere. The surface low is right around here in southeastern Virginia. This will help to intensify this low as it pulls slowly to the north and east over the next several hours. Now, if you're wondering why it could be snowing in D.C. but raining across southeastern Pennsylvania, even though we're farther to the north here, well, close to the low pressure area, there's upper level dynamics associated with that jet streak that we were just talking about. And in many situations like this, upper level of dynamics causes upward motion in the atmosphere, which helps to tend to cool things off. It actually brings colder air from the upper part of the atmosphere down into the lower part of the atmosphere. So in this region right here, D.C. and Western Virginia, they're actually colder where there's more dynamics associated with that upper level jet streak. Here's the surface freezing line way down here, the 32 degree line right now as of last hour, cutting across south central Pennsylvania into the western part of Virginia. This red line right here represents very cold air in the upper part of the atmosphere at 850 millibars. This is kind of the rain snow line here. So it's much colder in the upper part of the atmosphere all the way down towards the coast. So when the precipitation is heavy enough, the dynamics strong enough, it actually helps to bring some colder air from aloft. And all of this should move north and east as the day progresses, as that storm intensifies. So enough dynamics, along with that lower level wind shift from the east to the northeast, should occur here in southeastern Pennsylvania to change precipitation over to snow. Then the question is how much precipitation will continue overnight tonight after that cold air moves in, and that's still a tough forecast, but we think there'll be enough for some accumulations here across southeastern Pennsylvania. Well, I thought it might be kind of interesting to take a look at a model that NOAA runs. It's kind of a short-term model called the Rapid Refresh Model. It is in 1 hour increments, only goes out to about midnight tonight, starting from the current time, but it kind of gives an indication as to what could happen here with this low pressure area over the next several hours. Let's start the loop here, and again, this is 1 hour increments here, and that surface low moves slowly to the north and east. Meanwhile, you can see kind of these isobars turning here from more of a east-west orientation to more northeast to southwest, and indeed the winds will change from out of the east to more out of the northeast. The greens represent the precipitation hanging on here after the colder air starts to move in across southeastern Pennsylvania, but just barely. That's one of the problems with the difficulties of the forecast. How much precipitation will hang on here in southern New Jersey, central New Jersey, southeastern Pennsylvania after it gets cold enough for snow. Some of the models shunt the precipitation out rather quickly, which would limit the snowfall possibilities to very little, if any, whereas some other models, like the NAM model we've been talking about, hangs the precipitation on well into the night, and that would give us a few inches of accumulation here in southeastern Pennsylvania. They would definitely get several inches here across D.C. It's already snowing there. They definitely have several more hours of rather intense precipitation that should give them quite a snowstorm for the day. Well, finally, let's wrap up with looking at last night's Zero-Z GFS model run. This is for this afternoon, about 1 o'clock this afternoon. That low moves from about the Richmond area to just off the southeastern coast. By the way, last hour, Richmond reported a thunderstorm. It's thumping the D.C. region and all of northern Maryland, northern Virginia, with heavy precipitation over the next few hours here, and all the way out to eastern West Virginia. Precipitation is intensifying here across southeastern Pennsylvania. And notice the wind flow here continues for at least till the early part of the afternoon, basically parallel to these lines out of the east, and that'll limit any snowfall during the morning hours into the early part of the afternoon hours along the coast. Let's now jump ahead 6 hours. And here's the GFS forecast for about 7 o'clock tonight. That low moves off the coast. Winds do switch around to the northeast, bringing in some colder air here across southeastern Pennsylvania, but also notice that the precipitation is not all that heavy up in this region here in east central Pennsylvania, northern New Jersey, according to the GFS model. Now again, the NAM model had more significant precipitation lasting into the night, giving us here in southeastern Pennsylvania some accumulating snow. The GFS has been one of those drier models after the colder air moves in. And let's jump ahead another 6 hours. And here it is for the 1 a.m. time frame in the middle of the night. GFS model pretty much pulls off the East Coast any of that significant precipitation. So we'll monitor all of this over the next several hours, see what the computer forecast models do with the update, but more importantly, now we're in the nowcasting stage where we look at the actual observations. And again, snow continues for the next several hours on the heavy side from Washington, D.C., points south and west. That's the bullseye for the snowstorm today. Eastern West Virginia, Western Virginia, Northern Maryland, Western Maryland, and then across southeastern Pennsylvania and parts of the Delmarva and parts of New Jersey, the rain should gradually change to snow. And there can be a few inches of snow by later today and tonight in that region, and that's what we'll monitor over the next several hours. That's it for now. Stay tuned to the SIweather.com. I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian.